Sick. Hi guys, today we will talk about the Punic Wars. The Punic Wars were a series of wars taking place between 264 and 146 BC that were fought between the Roman Republic and ancient Carthage. It was regarded as the longest and most severely contested war in history by the ancient Greek historian Polybius. The fighting consisted predominantly of naval warfare, and it largely took place on the waters of the Mediterranean surrounding Sicily. The main source for almost every aspect of the Punic Wars is the historian Polybius, a Greek sent to Rome in 167 BC as a hostage. His works include a now largely lost manual on military tactics, but he is now known for the histories, written sometime after 146 BC. Polybius's work is considered broadly objective and largely neutral as between Carthaginian and Roman points of view. Polybius was an analytical historian and wherever possible personally interviewed participants, from both sides, in the events he wrote about. The Roman Republic had been aggressively expanding in the southern Italian mainland for a century before the First Punic War. It had conquered peninsular Italy south of the Arno River by 272 BC when the Greek cities of southern Italy Magna Graecia submitted after the conclusion of the Pyrrhic War. During this period of Roman expansion, Carthage, with its capital in what is now Tunisia, had come to dominate southern Spain, much of the coastal regions of North Africa, the Balearic Islands, Corsica, Sardinia, and the western half of Sicily. Beginning in 480 BC, Carthage had fought a series of inconclusive wars against the Greek city-states of Sicily, led by Syracuse. By 264 BC, Carthage was the dominant external power on the island, and Carthage and Rome were the preeminent powers in the western Mediterranean. Relationships were good and the two states had several times declared their mutual friendship via formal alliances in 509 BC, 348 BC, and around 279 BC. There were strong commercial links. During the Pyrrhic War of 282–75 BC, against a king of Epirus who alternately fought Rome in Italy and Carthage on Sicily, Carthage provided materiel to the Romans and on at least one occasion used its navy to ferry a Roman force. According to the classicist Richard Miles, Rome's expansionary attitude after southern Italy came under its control combined with Carthage's proprietary approach to Sicily caused the two powers to stumble into war more by accident than design. The immediate cause of the war was the issue of control of the independent Sicilian city-state of Messana, modern Messina. In 264 BC, Carthage and Rome went to war, starting the First Punic War. Most male Roman citizens were eligible for military service and would serve as infantry, with the better-off minority providing a cavalry component. Traditionally, when at war, the Romans would raise two legions, each of 4,200 infantry and 300 cavalry. Approximately 1,200 of the infantry, poorer or younger men unable to afford the armor and equipment of a standard legionary, served as javelin-armed skirmishers, known as velites. They carried several javelins, which would be thrown from a distance, a short sword, and a 90-centimeter shield. The balance were equipped as heavy infantry, with body armor, a large shield and short thrusting swords. They were divided into three ranks, of which the front rank also carried two javelins, while the second and third ranks had a thrusting spear instead. Both legionary subunits and individual legionaries fought in relatively open order. It was the long-standing Roman procedure to elect 2 men each year, known as consuls, as senior magistrates, who at time of war would each lead an army. An army was usually formed by combining a Roman legion with a similarly sized and equipped legion provided by their Latin allies. Allied legions usually had a larger attached complement of cavalry than Roman ones. Carthaginian citizens only served in their army if there was a direct threat to the city. When they did, they fought as well-armored heavy infantry armed with long thrusting spears, although they were notoriously ill-trained and ill-disciplined. In most circumstances, Carthage recruited foreigners to make up its army. Many were from North Africa, which provided several types of fighters including close-order infantry equipped with large shields, helmets, short swords and long thrusting spears, javelin-armed light infantry skirmishers, close-order shock cavalry carrying spears, and light cavalry skirmishers who threw javelins from a distance and avoided close combat. Both Iberia and Gaul provided large numbers of experienced infantry unarmored troops who would charge ferociously, but had a reputation for breaking off if combat was protracted, and unarmored close-order cavalry referred to by Livy as steady, meaning that they were accustomed to sustained hand-to-hand combat rather than hit-and-run tactics. The close-order Libyan infantry and the citizen militia would fight in a tightly packed formation known as a phalanx. On occasion some of the infantry would wear captured Roman armor, especially among Hannibal's troops. Slingers were frequently recruited from the Balearic Islands. The Carthaginians also employed war elephants. North Africa had indigenous African forest elephants at the time. Much of the First Punic War was fought on, or in the waters near, Sicily. Away from the coasts, its hilly and rugged terrain made maneuvering large forces difficult and favored the defense over the offense. Land operations were largely confined to raids, sieges and interdiction. In 23 years of war on Sicily there were only 2 full-scale pitched battles. The war began with the Romans gaining a foothold on Sicily at Messana, modern Messina. The Romans then pressed Syracuse, the only significant independent power on the island, into allying with them 71 and laid siege to Carthage's main base at Ochryges on the south coast 72. A Carthaginian army of 50,000 infantry, 6,000 cavalry, and 60 elephants attempted to lift the siege in 262 BC, but was heavily defeated at the Battle of Ochryges. That night the Carthaginian garrison escaped and the Romans seized the city and its inhabitants, selling 25,000 of them into slavery. After this the land war on Sicily reached a stalemate as the Carthaginians focused on defending their well-fortified towns and cities. These were mostly on the coast and so could be supplied and reinforced without the Romans being able to use their superior army to interfere. The focus of the war shifted to the sea, where the Romans had little experience. On the few occasions they had previously felt the need for a naval presence, they had usually relied on small squadrons provided by their Latin or Greek allies. The Romans built a navy to challenge Carthage's, and using the Corvus inflicted a major defeat at the Battle of Mylae in 260 BC. A Carthaginian base on Corsica was seized, but an attack on Sardinia was repulsed. The base on Corsica the Romans had seized was then lost. In 258 BC a Roman fleet heavily defeated a smaller Carthaginian fleet at the Battle of Sulci off the western coast of Sardinia. Taking advantage of their naval victories the Romans launched an invasion of North Africa in 256 BC, which the Carthaginians intercepted at the Battle of Cape Ecnomus off the south coast of Sicily. The Carthaginians were again beaten. This was possibly the largest naval battle in history by the number of combatants involved. The invasion initially went well and in 255 BC the Carthaginians sued for peace, but the proposed terms were so harsh they fought on. At the Battle of Tunis in spring 255 BC a combined force of infantry, cavalry, and war elephants under the command of the Spartan mercenary Xanthippus crushed the Romans. The Romans sent a fleet to evacuate their survivors and the Carthaginians opposed it at the Battle of Cape Hermium, modern Cape Bon. The Carthaginians were again heavily defeated. The Roman fleet, in turn, was devastated by a storm while returning to Italy, losing most of its ships and more than 100,000 men. The war continued, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Carthaginians attacked and recaptured Ochryges in 255 BC, but not believing they could hold the city, they razed and abandoned it. The Romans rapidly rebuilt their fleet, adding 220 new ships, and captured Panormus, modern Palermo, in 254 BC. The next year they lost another 150 ships to a storm. On Sicily, the Romans avoided battle in 252 and 251 BC, according to Polybius, because they feared the war elephants which the Carthaginians had shipped to the island. In 250 BC the Carthaginians advanced on Panormus, but in a battle outside the walls the Romans drove off the Carthaginian elephants with javelin fire. The elephants routed through the Carthaginian infantry, who were then charged by the Roman infantry to complete their defeat. Slowly the Romans had occupied most of Sicily. In 250 BC they besieged the last two Carthaginian strongholds, Lilybaeum and Drepana, in the extreme west. Repeated attempts to storm Lilybaeum's strong walls failed, as did attempts to block access to its harbor, and the Romans settled down to a siege which was to last 9 years. They launched a surprise attack on the Carthaginian fleet, but were defeated at the Battle of Drepana, Carthage's greatest naval victory of the war. Carthage turned to the maritime offensive, inflicting another heavy naval defeat at the Battle of Phintias, and all but swept the Romans from the sea. It was to be 7 years before Rome again attempted to field a substantial fleet, while Carthage put most of its ships into reserve to save money and free up manpower. After more than 20 years of war, both states were financially and demographically exhausted. Evidence of Carthage's financial situation includes their request for a 2,000 talent loan from Ptolemaic Egypt, which was refused. Rome was also close to bankruptcy, and the number of adult male citizens, who provided the manpower for the navy and the legions, had declined by 17% since the start of the war. Goldsworthy describes Roman manpower losses as appalling. The Romans rebuilt their fleet again in 243 BC after the Senate approached Rome's wealthiest citizens for loans to finance the construction of one ship each, repayable from the reparations to be imposed on Carthage once the war was won. This new fleet effectively blockaded the Carthaginian garrisons. Carthage assembled a fleet which attempted to relieve them, but it was destroyed at the Battle of the Aegates Islands in 241 BC, forcing the cut-off Carthaginian troops on Sicily to negotiate for peace. The Treaty of Lutatius was agreed. By its terms Carthage paid 3,200 talents of silver, note 7, in reparations, and Sicily was annexed as a Roman province. Henceforth Rome considered itself the leading military power in the western Mediterranean, and increasingly the Mediterranean region as a whole. The immense effort of repeatedly building large fleets of galleys during the war laid the foundation for Rome's maritime dominance for 600 years. Thank you for watching Part 1. Part 2 will be coming out soon. This audio file was created by Panopreader Basic. You can download it at panopreader.com.